Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. This is How Do Consumers Respond to Price Complexity? Experimental Evidence from the Power Sector. I'm Grant Jacobsen. This is co-authored with James Stewart. The first thing I want to say is that technology is enabling new forms of prices to be used. So I think the easiest way of relating to this is using ride-hailing services where you're effectively using Uber or Lyft like a taxi, but you're paying a rate based on underlying system conditions, whereas with a conventional taxi, you have been paying a predetermined rate. New forms of prices aren't just being used for transportation. We're using them for healthcare. We're using them to, for example, for how we pay for cable television. And we're using them in the setting that I'm going to talk about today, which is the power sector. And in the power sector, just like with transportation, this change is driven through technology. We've got more deployment of advanced metering infrastructure. We have enhanced generation from renewable sources. And all of these factors are making the gains to shifting to dynamic prices larger than they ever have been. So what do we mean by dynamic prices? So in the power sector, people on conventional rates, which most people still are, and historically almost everybody was, pay the same price per kilowatt hour, regardless of the time of day when that electricity is consumed. So we have a flat line here on standard rate. A version of dynamic pricing is time of use pricing. And what that means is what you pay depends on the hour of day. And typically there's a peak window in the afternoon from say 3 to 8 p.m. when prices are elevated to a level that is maybe 4 times greater than what they are during off-peak periods. And again, this is every day with maybe the exceptions of weekends. There's also event-based pricing. And under event-based pricing, during certain idiosyncratic events, like say a heat wave, there are events called by the utility which create large incentives for customers to reduce their consumption. Again, this would be a heat wave, there's expected to be peaky air conditioning demand, and there's a large incentive for people to cut back to avoid high levels of demand that might overwhelm the system or lead to large costs. A third approach is hybrid pricing, which layers event-based pricing on top of time of use pricing. And that's what we're going to focus on. And the literature has focused or has done a good job examining time of use only pricing as well as event only pricing, whether structured either as critical peak pricing, in which there's a direct charge, or critical peak rebates, which is what we examine, in which you have the opportunity to earn a rebate relative to baseline. But the literature has not done a good job at looking at, or has not yet looked at, hybrid pricing. So to examine this, we use an experiment with a recruit and deny randomization procedure, where the key experimental variation is whether treatment individuals are on event-only rebates, are on a hybrid treatment with both rebates and time of use pricing, or on time of use pricing in isolation. So to preview the results for time of use, we never see really any effect of time of use pricing. And this is likely because we're only using a 2-to-1 peak to off-peak ratio, which the literature has shown produces either small or insignificant effects. So focusing on event pricing, events when implemented in isolation are quite effective. So in this graph, triangles are treatment, circles are control, diamonds are the difference. We see a large decrease in consumption in the treatment individuals right when the events occur between 4 and 7 p.m. If you look at hybrid pricing, you can squint and see a little bit of effect. This is more evident when we do it relative to the pre-programmed baseline. So there's something there, but it's much smaller. And we confirm this with regression estimates. Effectively, we see a 19% decrease from rebates in isolation versus only 5% for rebates when offered with TOU pricing. And this is despite creating the same marginal incentive. Rebates are about 4 times more effective. This is my concluding slide. The punchline is, if we're going to use prices to change behavior, there's a tension between adding complexity, which allows them to better align with what you're trying to motivate, but the cost of complexity, which can overwhelm consumers and make prices ineffective. I hope you'll read the paper. Thanks for watching.